All right, this is the second half of 7.3, multiplying with binomials and trinomials. In the second half of this video, we will finish up when we have a binomial squared, and which is what 7 and 8 are, and then we will move on to a binomial times a trinomial. So again, I'm going to work these where I'm going to do the odd numbers double distribution and the even numbers box method. So again, it is important to remember that this is the same thing twice. I highly encourage you to rewrite it instead of being 4x minus 9 squared as 4x minus 9 times 4x minus 9, so you don't miss out on that middle part of your answer. So we're going to have 4x times 4x minus 9y, and then we're going to have minus 9y times 4x minus 9y. Remember that this 4x minus 9y is what's going here, that's staying in the parentheses. And this first 4x minus 9y is getting separated into 4x and minus 9y so that we can double distribute it. All right, so 4x times 4x is 16x squared. 4x times minus 9 is minus 36xy. So don't drop your variable. You've got an x on the outside, a y on the inside. So they're going to have to come together and sit beside of each other. Same thing in the next term. Minus 9y times 4x is minus 36xy. So remember also, x gets to go first because it comes first in the alphabet. Now, this one is going to have a little bit of a different thing happen because it does have more than one variable. So at the end right here, we're going to have negative 9 times negative 9, which is positive 81. And we have y times y. So at the end, we're going to have y squared. So we haven't seen any like that yet, but this actually happens all the time. It's perfectly normal. And then remember that you have two xy's terms in the middle right here. So we have to add those together. So we're going to keep 16x squared, then 30 minus 36 minus 36, or negative 36 minus 36 is negative, what is that, 72? I don't have my calculator up. Yeah, 72 xy. And then bring down the plus 81y squared. So we've got this middle part where we added those together is that middle term. We just brought down this one because it didn't have another term like it. X squared is not the same as y squared, so those have to stay separated just like that. All right, so then I'll do number 8, box method, and I'll try this time to do a better job than I did last time. I haven't given myself enough room. So I'm going to have these two binomials. So you take that negative 4k minus 6m and write that out 2 times, because that's what the square means, is that you're multiplying that to itself. And then I'm going to draw me a box. And hopefully I've left myself room at the bottom this time to put the answer underneath my work, which is much nicer than having to go back and put it on top. Okay, so I've got negative 4k and negative 6m because they're both minus, they're both negative. So make sure your sign stays with them so that when you multiply, you are multiplying by the negative as well. All right, so in our first box, we've got negative 4k times negative 4k. So negative times negative is positive 16. K times k is k squared. Then we'll move over to the box beside of it. We've got negative 4 times negative 6 is positive 24. And then k times m is just km. Remember, k comes before m in the alphabet, so it gets to go first. Then in the bottom, first square, we're going to have negative 4 times negative 6 again, so that's positive 24. And then we've got k times m. And then for the very last square, negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36, and m times m is m squared. So the only place, again, that you have to add together is in the middle, the diagonal. So our answer to this is going to be 16k squared plus 48m, or whoops, I left out my k, km plus 36m squared. So 24 plus 24 is 48, and then you just keep the km. Remember, when you're adding, you don't change the variables or exponents. All right, so that finishes up binomial squared. Now we're going to look at, we've got 4 here for a binomial times a trinomial. So you can see this is a binomial times a trinomial. It is very important that if you do this double distribution, that you start with the binomial. It needs to be the one you split, and then you're going to leave the trinomial in the parentheses for the multiplication and distribution part. So I'm going to have 6x times 4x squared plus 5x minus 2. And you've got to be careful because this takes up a lot of room. So now I'm going to split and do the 3 times 4x squared plus 5x minus 2. And I almost ran out of room, so be careful that you're writing small enough to get all of your work in. All right, so now I'm going to do 6x times 4x squared. So 6 times 4 is 24, and x times x squared is x to the third. Remember, we talked about last time having one x on the outside, 2 x's on the inside. 1 plus 2 is 3. So make sure you don't drop your exponent there. So that was this. Now I'm going to do 6x times 5x. So 6 times 5 is 30, and x times x is x squared. And then I'm going to do 6x times negative 2. That's negative 12x. All right, now I'm going to move over here and start doing the distribution with 3. So 3 times 4x squared is 12x squared. 3 times 5x is 15x. And 3 times minus 2 is minus 6. So make sure that you multiplied everything, okay? So you should have 3 from the first parentheses and 3 from the second parentheses. So you should have 6 total terms when you multiply a binomial times a trinomial. All right, so now we're going to look for like terms. So you can see that there is not another x to the third, okay? There's no more exponents that are 3. So that's right, there should only be one of those. Then we're going to look at x squared. So I have an x squared here, and then I have an x squared here. So I'm going to have to add those guys together in a minute. Then I'm going to look at my x's. I have an x here, and I have an x here. So I'm going to add those guys together in a minute. And then I just have one constant, which is correct. You should only have one constant. So I'm going to bring down my 24x to the third. Then I'm going to add my x squared. So I have 30 plus 12, which is 42x squared. Then I'm going to add my x's. So I have negative 12 plus 15. And so negative 12 plus 15 is positive 3x. And then I'm going to bring down my constant of minus 6. All right, and notice the really nice thing about this when you do double distribution is they are automatically in standard form. You automatically have the x squared or x cubed first, followed by the x squared, followed by the x, followed by the constant. So that's very nice that it stays really neat and you don't have to think about rearranging it at the end. All right, we're going to do the second one here, number 10, as a box method. Now this time when you do a box method, I would do the 2a plus 4 on the side, and then do the a squared minus 7a minus 8 across the top. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw out that box. Hopefully I make it big enough. And then this goes all the way across to separate 2a plus 4. And then I'm going to have a squared minus 7a minus 8. So I'll have 3 separations or sections inside of the box this time, top and bottom. So again, think about, I said over here that you have 6 terms, and in this box you're going to have 6 little boxes. So 2a times a squared is 2a to the third. Let me use a different color. Whoops. Let's use a different color so that this doesn't all just look like a big blue bunch of stuff. So 2a times a squared is 2a to the third. Then we're going to move over and do 2a times negative 7a. So 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. And a times a is a squared. Then we're going to do 2a times negative 8, which would be negative 16a. Then we're going to move to the bottom. 4 times a squared is 4a squared. And then we're going to have 4 times negative 7a is negative 28a. And then the last one, negative 8 times 4 is negative 32. Now on this one, you still are going to have to look for pairs, but it's different this time because we have a diagonal for a squared pair, and then we also are going to have a diagonal for a, so a pair of a's as well. So we have a pair of a squareds and a pair of a's. So you're going to have 2a to the third comes first. So always start up here in this corner. That's the one you want to start with. And then we're going to add our first set of diagonals together. So our a squared. So we've got 4 and negative 14. So that would be negative 10a squared. So think about 4 minus 14 would be negative 10. Then we're going to do the next diagonal, which is negative 28 minus 16. So that would be, hold on, I got to think about it, 44. So, and they're both negative. So negative 44a. So it's like negative 28 minus 16. And so that would be 4 and 4, like that. And you can definitely use your calculator and then bring down the minus 32. So then that's our answer. That's all of our stuff in order, standard form. Very nice. Okay, so it's not really that much different than doing a binomial times a binomial. It just has an extra term in there, which means you just have more like terms to combine at the end. All right, I'm going to real quick do 11 and 12 to finish up this video. Whoops, minus 6. All right, so now we're going to distribute the k first. So I have negative 2k to the third plus k squared minus 3k. So I just distributed that k. Everybody got a k. Now I'm going to distribute negative 6. So negative times negative is positive 12k squared. Negative times positive is negative k or 6k. And then negative times negative is positive 18. And so then I'm going to combine like terms. So I've got k squared and 12k squared to add together. And then I have negative 3k and negative 6k to add together. So I'm going to keep negative 2k to the third. k squared plus 12k is 13k squared. Remember, this has a 1 that we don't write. And then negative 3 minus 6 is negative 9k. And then bring down the plus 18. So that is our final answer in standard form. All right, so for this last one, I'm going to build a box. I'll do it the opposite of this one to show you what that looks like. It will still work. It just is a little bit more awkward. And I'll have to be sure that I leave myself enough room over here to write my answer out. All right, and so then we put a line down the middle, and then you need to separate it into 3 sections on the inside. So you normally don't see the box written like this. And we have x squared plus 5x plus 1. Okay? So negative 2x times x squared is negative 2x to the third. 1 times x squared is just x squared. Negative 2x times 5x is negative 10x squared. And then 5x times 1 is just 5x. Makes it nice when you have 1's in there because they don't change anything. So 1 times negative 2x is negative 2x, and 1 times 1 is 1. All right, so then you are going to, again, look at these diagonals. So you've got negative 10x squared plus 1x squared, and you've got negative 2x plus 5x on that one. All right, so we're going to write this out. Start with the top left corner, negative 2x to the third. And then negative 10x plus 1x is negative 9x squared. Negative 2x plus 5x is 3x. And then we've just got plus 1 on the end. Ooh, I barely got that in there. So that's your answer there. So again, some people really prefer using the box method. I agree that it is much more neat. It keeps everything separated until you're ready to add those diagonals together and combine like terms for your final answer. You don't have to look for anything because it's all right there in the boxes. So if you want to use that every time, that is okay. In fact, I can make you a box page, like it's just a page of boxes for you to use. If you need that, just let me know. But you probably could also tell that doing double distribution was a little bit more quick. Part of that had to do with having to draw a box every time. So if you have the box page, then it wouldn't take as much time. So let me know if you have questions or if you would like a page of boxes.